This is the Alien Podcast on TV Podcast Industries, and we're here discussing Alien Earth Episode 6, The Fly.
This is a yes place, not a no place.
What the hell is that supposed to mean?
The boy genius said that no is the first step to nothing. Being nothing, achieving nothing. And here, we say yes.
If someone tries to take advantage of you, tries to hurt you, then no gives you power. It gives you power over your body, power over your life. We don't have to talk about this. Not today. It's been a crazy few days. I'm so proud of you. I can't imagine how hard all this has been. It's not gonna be forever. I promise. I'm working out a way to get us out of here.
What if I don't want to go?
Welcome back, fellow Lost Boys and fellow aliens. This is TV Podcast Industries. This is the Alien Podcast, and we are discussing Episode 6 of Alien Earth, The Fly. Not McFly or The Fly. It is The Fly. I am one of your winged hosts, John.
Fantastic, and having recently escaped my escape room, I'm back. It's Derek, your other host, for the podcast as well.
Oh yes, were there any flies in there?
Probably a few flies.
Or facehuggers.
They didn't form part of the escape room. Ours was Sherlock Holmes theme, so it would have been really out there if a Xenomorph had jumped out of the corner and killed one of us. Thankfully, we escaped with 15 seconds left on the very extended clock.
And then they would have released the flies.
And then they probably did release the flies, yes. Okay.
Makes it sound very dodgy and dangerous, that escape room. But I presume it was okay.
It was fine. It was absolutely fine. Yes, very safety conscious. They kept telling us things like, "I know it doesn't fit the room, but you do have to have a fire blanket in here, in case any fires break out from the things that might go on fire." But yes, no, a lot of fun.
Excellent.
And that's, of course, the reason why we're late with the podcast this week. I'm not just mentioning it for no reason. We are late because we missed our normal weekly recording spot.
Because you were lost in the escape room.
Well, I was out for the night.
Yes, exactly. But fellow Lost Boys, let us get into our spoiler-filled review. This is TV Podcast Industries. Please head on over to subscribe at tvpodcastindustries.com. You can subscribe to any alien or synth-like podcast catcher of your choice. We love to get your thoughts, theories, and observations on all the episodes of Alien Earth. Please send in your emails to feedback at tvpodcastindustries.com or come on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries, where we have spoiler posts that you can comment on to send in your feedback for the podcast. But without further ado, let us get on to our spoiler-filled discussion. Derek, who gave us what, where, when, and how? Noah Hawley.
Well, the characters, of course, are based on characters created by Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett with H.R. Geiger. The showrunner for the show is Noah Hawley, and this episode was written by Noah Hawley and Lisa Long. Lisa Long has written for the show The Terminal List with Chris Pratt on Prime Video in the past. It's her big credit.
I don't really know anything about the Terminal List. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but this was a great episode again for me.
It was really, really good, good. And once again, the episode directed by Ugla Hauksdóttir, who we mentioned, directed episode 4. So she directed the episodes either side of the flashback episode to the Mansion. So really probably the two back-to-back episodes. Yeah. We know Noah Hawley has a penchant for fixing his shows in editing. He films everything and then puts it all together into the series. So I'm not sure whether they knew the flashback episode would be episode 5 when they originally filmed it. and then put in between these two episodes by Ugla.
Excellent.
Yeah, kind of cool. John, do you want to tell us what they gave us with your synopsis for Alien Earth, Episode 6, The Fly?
Sure. As the Xenomorph grows, Wendy continues to communicate with it all the time, perfecting her technique. Elsewhere in the facility, another hybrid, Nibs, undergoes testing, prompting Atom Eins to demand her memory wiped and her stimulation to be reduced, so she is ready to smile at product launch. Arthur Sylvia refuses to do it, as it goes against all the principles of the hybrid program, but his wife, Dame Sylvia, decides to accept, and Arthur is fired under threat of execution if he is not gone from Neverland by the end of the day. Meanwhile, Boy Cavalier travels with Kirsch and Atom Eins to meet with Yutani and negotiates with her over the crash of the USCSS Maginot and the alien cargo ownership. Boy Cavalier secures billions in damages, but is also able to delay the return of the alien specimens due to agreed global quarantine protocol. Back at Neverland, Kirsch remotely asks Tootles to look after the laboratory, and a mishap in the lab locks Tootles inside the cage of one of the 5 alien species, the Fly, and is killed when they spit acid on his face. When Nibs awakes after her mind wipe, Wendy learns that she was reprogrammed, and confronts Dame Sylvia, revealing she's beginning to empathize with the Xenomorph alien, and questions everything around her, including Dame Sylvia. Under the influence of Morrow, slightly tries to take Joe to one of the alien eggs, but he is able to avoid his fate when he's reassigned to the security detail. Before leaving, Arthur disables Wendy's tracker and gives Joe a boat code to help them escape. But when he notices that Tootles' tracker and camera have gone off, Arthur goes to the secure lab to investigate. He enlists Slightly's help to find the missing hybrid, and Slightly takes his opportunity and betrays Arthur, locking him in with a facehugger that successfully latches onto his face. All the while, Kirsch watches silently on his tablet without informing Boy Cavalier. Back in the lab, Slightly hides the body and himself inside the air vent as the chaos brews in the lab, and the T-Oculus watches on. Bah!
There are so many scenes in this episode of that sheep with the eyeball just watching that. It's like in the background he is freaking me out every time I watch a scene in that lab. Just little moments with the eyeball just staring, disconnected from the rest of the body.
But there are two great aspects here, I think, with the sheep. I mean, one is that kind of in celebration of the sheep sort of at least really effing up Tootles' day by sort of frightening him with the bang against the glass and locking him in with the Fly. After the flies have decided to go feeding, it's almost like you see the sheep go on its hind legs, standing upright again, almost like in celebration, or at least maybe to get a better view of
I
it,
think it's
or
to get a better
whatever
view.
it is. But it's really good.
Yeah.
And the other one is just like, and I'm not entirely sure what it signifies or whether it's just being really cool. But there's a real close up of the eye, and it one of the other irises, almost like it comes from behind at the back of the eyeball, comes in and merges with the other irises at the front, being the sheep's eye at the moment. And it almost reminded me of the Trivial Pursuit circles with the wedges.
Little pies,
and as the wedge comes in to add another level of I guess ocular vision to Octi eyeball, effectively. Just some really cool stuff with this little creature that has so much personality, or is being given so much personality through the creativity of how it's being conceived and conceptualized by the team on this show.
There's two schools of thought in it. I'm definitely in the school of thought. This is the best standout character from the show. Really enjoying it. And there's the other school that doesn't like it because they think Disney are doing what they did with Grogu in The Mandalorian, making this the new character that will become plushies everywhere around the world. So in other words,
because Grogu burrows into someone's eyeball.
He does feed himself quite a lot, killing creatures around him. But so basically, there's one school of thought that really likes it, another school of thought that doesn't like that people like something. basically.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. But I really like it. One of the other things I learned this week is there is another name. We've been talking about all the different names this character has gotten. There's another great name, which is the Alien, which I'm very impressed with.
that kind of trips off the tongue a lot better.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm wondering why that wasn't just the name everybody gave it to begin with. And I wonder if if there is going to be a second season of the show, will it just be called Alien Earth? Maybe.
That'd be awesome. I mean, I'm wondering, did the crew on this show just have that brainstorm event where like, what do we call this? I mean, Teoculus, I get it, is very scientific, but yes, we need something that like trips off the tongue a bit easier than Tyrannus Oculus or whatever it is, I
think it's Tyrannus.
It's not Tyrannus,
Teoculus, definitely. But I do feel that the person that came up with the basic concept of it was just going for a scientific name that would sound realistic.
Oh, agreed. Definitely.
Rather than something that's just really fun.
I'm not complaining. It's just like, and in some ways, actually, one of the great things about there not being that kind of easily tongue trippable name for it is it's really engaged people to think of different names for it. Exactly. See which sticks.
Yeah. Like Baby Yoda being the name that was given to him for a season and a half until he eventually got Grogu.
Yes, exactly. But I mean, also just coming back to your point, like Grogu is eating like we do, and these things need to. So it's not being like, but it just eats them.
Sorry, the reason why I'm saying it is there is a very specific episode of The Mandalorian where there's a character who's trying to save her eggs, if you remember, and it's just Grogu licking its lips the whole time trying to eat her eggs.
Well, that's true.
So there is that one. It's just he eats everything around him, even at what's he, 50 years old, isn't he? Something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. Anyway, back to Alien Earth rather than The Mandalorian.
Exactly, and a much better character than Grogu in Teoculus. No, we don't. Anyway, yes, let's draw a line under Grogu here, and let's not compare him to Teoculus.
Okay.
At least in my mind.
Yeah.
So, the top moments of this episode. We have the big negotiation here.
I think we should start out with that because it's just really interesting seeing two major characters on screen together that haven't been on screen together. So, Boy Cavalier versus Yutani. She does go ahead and have the meeting with him. We saw Morrow at the end of the last episode on Earth telling her, your negotiation won't work. I have a different plan for you. But she still goes ahead with the negotiation. It's such a good scene.
Yeah, it's very good. Two very entitled people thrashing it out with the mediation of McAfee, who represents the governing 5 companies. So, like, I just kind of like the fact that, there's, in a sense, it's the ceremonialness of it. Yeah,
or
they're both
the
trying.
Attempted, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's almost sort of harking back to, medieval pageantry and ceremony where, yes, it's polite society, but all the while the machinations, the whirrings in the brain is how, now in this case, how do I take over this company and get even bigger? That's the battle that's happening here. It might involve troops on the ground, but it's like, what is our stock market valuation in comparison,
Yes,
because
we'll compare bank balances at any stage.
Because we have Yutani is throwing out numbers like it's going out of fashion here. And certainly huge numbers when she realizes that, maybe there's been a bit of a spanner in the works thrown in there by Boy Cavalier. And I just really like this combative but very polite ceremonial way of trying to decide what the outcome of this crash in New Siam is going to be, what the compensation is going to be, and importantly, what these and how these specimens will be dealt with ultimately. And in that sense, at least for the time being, and in that moment, Boy Cavalier does get one up on Yutani.
Really does.
With the blessing of McAfee and the rules and laws governing this kind of interaction.
Well, he does really win the arbitration, I guess. And that's kind of the thing. McAfee at the end saying, "I think we're all quite happy with the settlement." As he's saying it, she just says, "Shut up and get out of here, basically. But Samuel Blinken in this scene, just from the moment he walks in with his dirty feet dragging along the floor, sticks them up on the table and is being told, now, you're in polite society now, you need to comport yourself like this is a professional negotiation. And he's like, I don't care how things are. I don't really know how things are done in bureaucracyville here, but what I do know is her ship crashed into my building, killing thousands of people. She can have the ship back whenever I work out how to extract it from my building without the building falling down, is one of the first things he says.
Yeah.
He's so good in this negotiation. And I think for the first time in the show, I questioned before whether people think of Boy Cavalier as being very intelligent because he has a lot of money, or whether he actually is intelligent because it feels like he does some very stupid things in this show. And for the first time, I feel like this is a moment that shows he does have a lot of intelligence, at least in manipulation.
And he knows how to poke and prod to get a reaction.
Yeah.
I mean, even at the end where he's like, okay, well, that's fine. You wire over 20 billion to me, plus associated damages. And, you know, we'll sort out the specimens in 6 weeks after the quarantine is over. Yeah. And then he goes, and of course, I will accept your thoughts and prayers for our dead people. You know, really it's just that sort of prodding and poking of the bear, really, here.
Yeah. I didn't hear the line, but on the official podcast, the director, Ugla Hauksdóttir, said there's a moment when Yutani's asked how her day went, and she said, expensive. Completely disregarding the fact that there's thousands of human lives that are lost, basically. So that's why there's a bit of a needle there from Boy K, because he's saying to her, you didn't even mention all the human lives. All you want to do here is get back your specimens. He'd probably be the same, but we know he is because he's the one that caused the crash, right? So
exactly.
He's the one that brought it down, killing thousands of people, but she never even mentioned it until he did.
Well, and he says here, you know, maybe this was an attack, maybe this was deliberate. And like he swivels and pivots the conversation to that actually this may be corporate negligence here, that maybe the ship wasn't well maintained, maybe there was a drunk captain at the helm, and that it was negligence, corporate negligence, in which case that would have serious issues. It also means he won't let them investigate their own crash.
Absolutely not.
And so I like that. And then, of course, he does expose the cover-up of the alien specimens in there.
Do you want to see the photos?
Yeah. And it, you know, suddenly Yutani is just racking up the billions to
like
give
50 billion if I get them back now with no questions.
Yeah, and he's kind of like, sure, that's fine. And then says, oh, but there's the quarantine protocols that we need to protect the Earth here.
Just too dangerous to give them back to you now.
So I just really enjoyed this approach.
Absolutely. So when we saw the original crash of the Maginot going to Earth, we saw it hit a space station on the way down. I think it was a space station.
Yes, it was.
And Yutani claims here that the alien specimens weren't ever supposed to reach Earth. They were supposed to be tested and all the stuff done on them on a site off planet. Was it supposed to be that space station, or maybe another planet in the galaxy that they own, that they were going to bring it down because of these quarantine restrictions, that they can't bring it to Earth, so it has to go somewhere else? Do you think?
Maybe. I don't know, because clearly they were heading to Earth. The Maginot was heading to Earth, probably into orbit rather than landing on Earth.
Certainly not into a building.
Well, no, exactly. But not like any kind of sort of, I don't know, spaceport on Earth, I don't think. But who knows? Maybe the ultimate destination was to a secure laboratory facility in Weyland-Yutani occupied Earth. And it was going to be done there. But equally, yes, it could have been in one of the orbiting space stations.
Yeah, it's just because Boy K says by bringing them to Earth, you've broken thousands of treaties. The quarantine protocol, just as a general quarantine protocol, I don't think it's specifically about dangerous alien predator species, basically. He says you've broken hundreds of laws and I'm the victim here, basically. Because
but he does highlight that they are predatory.
Yeah.
And they are invasive and predatory.
Yeah.
So, he's certainly sticking the knife in. The interesting thing here is that given that Boy Cavalier uses kind of his top hand in the card deck in this negotiation about the specimens, we don't see a reciprocal response from Yutani around the knowledge or whether she even knows that the ship was crashed. Certainly when Boy Cavalier is talking about that, actually on the instruction of Boy Cavalier asking the engineer to take over the ship and to bring it to Earth. So it crashes into his territory, and so he can reclaim and recover these specimens, of which he has prior knowledge about. So,
as we saw last episode.
Yeah. So, and Morrow doesn't say anything here. So the current kind of maybe question mark over this is, has Morrow told Yutani? If so, Yutani is keeping her cards very close to her chest here. She feels that information wouldn't help in this situation.
Yes.
Even though I suspect it probably would do if that exposure was laid bare in a negotiation. Like even just the investigation of the ship, he's saying no to Yutani. Yutani could counter to say, well, you shouldn't be doing it either because of this information that we're aware of. It needs an independent third party. God, I'm speaking like a regulator. But anyway, anyway, but do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, it's really interesting, those question marks now about whether Morrow has told Yutani this information that he's aware of.
So I think she knows, or at least has an idea. And I think you're right. I think she realizes it wouldn't have helped her in the negotiations. And also, it would have hampered the second plan, the backup plan that Morrow has. I think that might be the reason that she didn't bring it up in that particular circumstance, accusing him across the table of being the one that caused the crash. It may have just been twisted even further. He just said, I'm not going to allow you to investigate your own crash of your own vessel. So if she throws that across the table with a legal guy there, it may cause more issues. But she does, in the next moment, reach out to Morrow immediately and go, right, enact the plan.
Yeah.
We've realized they have even more security out there. What's your suggestion? And he says, right, we need to create chaos. We need to get them released.
We need to destabilize the facility. He says, I could have a specimen in hand within 24 hours, but it's risky. We need to destabilize the laboratory and cause chaos effectively. But yeah, it is predicated on slightly ultimately, and that is the risk here. So that's really interesting because we see that play out later with slightly again going after Joe, and then ultimately becoming quite opportunistic. And we'll get to that later. I think the interesting thing as well after this is that they choose to put Kirsch and Morrow in an elevator together.
Absolutely.
And having a fairly antagonistic type conversation between one another. But equally, I'm just wondering, is this the peas in the pod moment? They're ultimately of a similar persuasion, whatever that may be, and whatever that is, because we still don't know the motivation of, say, Kirsch.
We have no idea.
Like we see throughout this episode. Is it just being inquisitive as a synth, objectively inquisitive as a synth, where then those other, knock-on effects or feelings, as we hear between Marcy and Dame Sylvia, they're not really part of the consideration as to what you do. And equally then with Morrow, just because you just don't know whether he has told Yutani about Boy Cavalier's involvement. It makes for a really intriguing scene. It's very brief about whether these are peas in a pod or whether they are absolutely on two different sides here.
Yeah, and it almost feels like it's an opportunity for all the synthetics, the synths, the hybrids, the cyborgs, to get together and rid the world of all humans. It's almost what it could be. This could be what's happening with these characters. That scene in the lift is like they're just ribbing each other with the type of slags that you would have for someone that you've known for a very long time, almost.
Exactly. It's like, how is it like working for a company that's making you obsolete?
Yes, like those kids in their shiny new bodies, it must get me one of those. And Kirsch going back to him and going, what, a child or a body? To replace the sad looking one you have now. They're just back and forth between the two of them, where because both of them are quite humorless, partly because one's a complete synthetic and the other one's a cyborg with a lot on his mind. But because of that, if they're not laughing with each other, like if you added that, if you had 2 Irish people in a room or 2 English people in a room, they would slag each other the way the 2 of them are. With a little more humor. Just a slight laugh after some of the things they're saying. It would just be 2 mates who haven't seen each other and haven't been alone together, let's say, for a long time. But throughout this episode, there are definitely indications that Kirsch has probably gone off his programming and will be up against humans, watching on and not saying anything. Even just Wendy bringing back up the fact that he's been telling them not to give in to their instincts to go human. Ignore that. You have an opportunity to not go human, basically.
Yeah.
You're going, uh-oh. Kirsch feels like a very dangerous character at this moment.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
Just such really interesting interactions. And again, one of the cool things about this type of show where you have so many great characters, having moments where 2 of them have time together to have these kind of scenes is exactly what you want in these big ensemble shows, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Really good.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our next big moment from the episode. Because we kind of have to deal with the fallout of what happened to Nibs. Last time we saw her, she was being sent back to her room with being accompanied by security guards who were told they have to deal with Protocol 3, I think it was, which seems to be turn her off. Let's investigate what's going on here because she seems to be going a bit off programming again. Kind of like Kirsch, yeah? But in a different way. She said that she was pregnant last time.
Yeah, I mean, the off programming is very and heavily influenced by it being I guess, human memory and a child's memory in many respects.
Right.
Possibly.
Yeah, maybe.
Like, in the sense there is a childlike quality to how she portrays it with Dame Sylvia, even just hugging the teddy all the time. And I think that's the issue. I think the other side of it is, I mean, there's 2 important elements here for me that sort of flow out of this reprogramming of Nibs, where she gets her memory wiped. In fact, 3. I think one is, and let's not forget that in the end, Atom Eins really does elucidate exactly what these children do mean for Prodigy Corp, which is they are products. They are saleable units.
Yep.
And his approach to what's happened with Nibs is we need a default. We need to go back to industry default, wipe her mind, reduce her sensitivity to external stimuli, and let's make sure that she is smiling and charming in front of the cameras in, what is it, the
3 weeks,
3 weeks time or whatever. So that is it. It's just a reminder that this show in and of itself is in, I guess, a stage of very late high-end capitalism.
Absolutely.
Where the corporations own the territory, sovereign states have effectively vanished as an entity, as a concept, and that everything is consumable. And we've had this through Dame Sylvia as well. Are we just going to create the forever consumer, effectively?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a nice sort of reintroduction to this through what Atom Eins is saying to Dame Sylvia and Arthur. And equally, then it's the responses to this by Arthur on the one hand and Dame Sylvia on the other.
Yeah, and she mentioned something that we weren't aware of before. I think actually the actress had said it in one of her interviews that she was playing Nibs as someone who'd gone through trauma in the past, but wasn't sure whether that was coming out in the script. Here we actually have Dame Sylvia saying, we knew when we took her on board, in her past there has been trauma, and all I need is to have some time with her in the chair, work through these challenges with her, and I can fix her. And that's when Atom Eins is saying, no, it's not about time. You don't have the time for that. We got to wipe her back. We're fixing her. So suddenly this becomes another moral dilemma almost with these hybrids, and they've been saying that this is the fusion effectively of one piece of technology, which is a synthetic body, and another piece of the actual personality of a human being into it, and now they're saying, well, we can wipe it just like another synthetic.
Yeah.
You know, it's a very different thing, and the knock-on effect of that is quite massive.
It's the evolution of the cyborg of Morrow. Cyborg is a physical component part of arms, hands, leg, whatever it might be. This is the conscious memory element of it being welded to an inorganic component here. And it's kind of interesting. But I mean, as well, I think Dame Sylvia here pivots very quickly from going, we need to give her therapy, to effectively undermining her husband, who doesn't want to have any part of it. And he says it actually goes against all the program protocols. It could fundamentally alter her personality, her identity. And we just don't know what that impact is. But Dame Sylvia pivots to say, well, I'll do it then. And this is it's that classic case in literature of the science means everything to the scientist. And they're so deep in the weeds of it that in the sense, immediately adjustable to Atom Eins' will to say in Neverland, and it might be born out of so I can influence the program, make sure that these children are looked after. Which I think in some respects it is probably with Dame Sylvia, but that also leads to her effectively undermining her husband and getting her husband fired, and then both of them separated.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because I had to look up the transcript of the episode actually for a different reason, for another one of the lines out of the episode. And I did check this because she says, we'll do it, to Atom Eins after Arthur says, I won't do it. So it's almost, again, she acts out of fear a lot, I feel, like very reactionary in moments of fear, let's say. There's another moment later on that she does something similar as well. But she wants to keep herself alive. She's worried what will happen to Arthur when he says no, and it feels like she just jumps out and goes, we'll do it, thinking Eins will walk out of the room, and then she can talk to Arthur about it.
That's a good spot. I didn't realise there was the we there, because yes, I think that puts a different spin on it, in that we will do it as husband and wife team.
But to your point, Eins then says to her, can you do it on your own? And she does say yes to that. So again, I think she just acts out of fear. She's worried about what happens. She thinks Arthur's just been told he's fired, and if you're not off the property within a couple of hours, you're going to be dead. So, she's kind of going, well, I'm not going to be in that situation. So I'll say, I can do it and I can sort it out. Can she? Is the other question. Is she as good a programmer as Arthur is? Will this mess Nibs up even further? The fact that she's done this adjustment, has it already screwed her up? It does lead to, and a bit too quickly for me, Wendy in the room waiting for Nibs to wake up, and then finds out very quickly that she's missing these few days. Now, I know that's probably economy of storytelling, but I feel like there should have been at least one scene in between Nibs having this, maybe another moment where she's with somebody else and nobody questions her, and then Wendy questions her.
Yeah, exactly. Or even it feeling a bit more organic. Like, Nibs wakes up, ends off being in the company of all the others, like Curly and so on, and starts playing games, and they, just by the very nature, like, of Smee, even just them talking about what's gone on, and she's kind of isn't able to sort of get involved in that conversation because it's been wiped, and Wendy noticing her, but Wendy immediately sort of asking these things, it felt more like an interrogation. Or that she knew already and just had to confirm it, but we never really saw anything around that. So I think it did feel a bit too soon.
I think it's also just because of how close it happens to the other scene as well, because I can understand Wendy is the leader of this group. She would be massively concerned if one of the members disappeared, was taken away for a while and then brought back, so I can understand why she's sitting there waiting, but it almost felt like, would Dame Sylvia allow Wendy to be sitting in the room ready for her to wake up, or wouldn't Dame Sylvia want to be the one sitting there when she woke up to explain to her and check her and test her and make sure she's it's taken?
And also because she's been placed as the leader here. I mean, ultimately there's two elements here. I think there's the influence of Kirsch, but equally she's been placed as the leader. Like when the children first arrived, and you saw her talking to them, and well, I'll help you through the process. So immediately it's like, but what implications does this have for me and for the wider group?
Exactly.
That Nibs has been reprogrammed. And, you know, it is a nice conversation that she has with Dame Sylvia, at least initially, because she does ask Dame Sylvia off the bat, well, was she given a choice? And I think if Dame Sylvia had said, well, yes, she was, then that agency, that self-determination for Nibs, that would have probably fed much better into Marcy's and Wendy's view of the situation, because it's the same one that she is applying to the alien specimens as well, about whether they were given a choice. You know, they, as she says, they weren't asked to be here. They were taken. They're being experimented on. They haven't been given a choice. And now what you're saying is Nibs wasn't given a choice. So are we down the line going to be subject to the same type of experimentation as these specimens are being subjected to?
And yes, they will, because they are.
Exactly.
You know, she even points that out. She says to Dame Sylvia, Kirsch is here, he's got his lab, he's testing on them just like you're testing on us. So she's made that connection between the xenomorphs and the hybrids as well. So it's really scary, especially, you know, as the conversation goes on. And again, this is what I was talking about a moment ago in our other point. Dame Sylvia does act out of fear. I think that moment with Nibs last time when she said the wrong word and Nibs jumped across the room and grabbed her, telling her to shut up. I think she's trying to avoid that with Wendy, who's also getting more and more aggressive in this situation. So she backtracks, she changes the topic, she tries to tell her that we're just here like any kind of doctor. This is the medicine we have to use because Nibs has some broken part of her. And Wendy picks up on that very quickly and goes, well, was it corrupt? You've used that word corrupt part of her. Was it corrupt? That's just how her mind works. But you've removed it effectively.
Yeah, it's your choice that it's corrupt. And, you know, she obviously listens to Kirsch here. You know, she says, stop pretending to be people. That's what he keeps saying to them. If people are like this, Wendy says, well, then, you know, I don't want to be like that. Nibs has gotten lost. And what if actually what's wrong in this situation is that you're the thing that's wrong. That people are wrong. You know, even the whole predatory nature of these alien creatures, she's saying, well, aren't humans? And of course we are. This is the thing. I mean, and this is with Joe even, where he starts saying these, you know, they're predatory. They have no things like community. And we try and differentiate it, and yet she comes back and says, well, ants or bees. But equally, you know, something even a bit more fluffier than that, a pride of lions, a pack of wolves.
I wouldn't want to be in the middle of a pride of lions.
No, I know, but what I mean is it's not just insects, but other mammals have social bonding, social hierarchy, community within the animal kingdom. Yes, it's not as complex as ours, but we've made ours complex. I mean, these lions haven't introduced taxes, you know, or medical insurance. You know, it's the social interaction. It's the cultural thing that results from that, of that pack or that pride. And I think, you know, and that's to Wendy's point, is that we have the same instincts as the alien. And the whole point of getting the alien is to have an upper hand in warfare or whatever, you know, we still kill, but we think we're kind of, 5 steps removed from it because we do family. I do
so advanced, don't we?
I do like that thing with Kirsch as well, where, you know, because we have Wendy here empathizing, increasingly sort of, connecting and speaking with this adolescent alien. And I think 2 things on this. First of all, I think it's really cool that we're seeing this stage of xenomorph development, because we haven't really seen it much before, if at all, and possibly in Prometheus with one of the other kind of conceptual sides of the xenomorph. But in terms of the original xenomorph, it's normally, you know, chest burster, and then the next thing you've got some honking sort of massive alien sending its tail down to either stab you through the back or sort of lift you up into the ceiling.
And listeners, he did say hunking, not hunky.
Yeah,
Just,
yeah,
you know.
hunking, yeah.
The hunky alien.
So I thought that was quite cool. But we do have Kirsch and Joe watching her talking and practicing her sort of communication, which is in itself is very creepy, both sides of it. Seeing her do the watch and speak to the young Xenomorph, but then you have Kirsch and Joe observing her. And, you know, Joe is kind of like trying to just feel it out about whether he thinks, you know, there might come a time where, well, you're kind of done with her now, and we can go back and we can, you know, be a family again. And Kirsch just looks at him because he can't fathom. To him, there's this complete objective disconnect here between the potential of Wendy, which, as he says, she could invent faster than light travel, space travel.
And travel the stars for thousands of years, and you want her to be family.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, it's just the limit of your ambition. He can't fathom this, and it's like just another thing where it's like, humans.
Exactly. Exactly.
And that is another nice insight into Kirsch here. As we see him sort of being, again, pretty sort of shady throughout this episode.
Yeah. But it's interesting, isn't it? Like, you're absolutely right. There's something about that with Kirsch where you realize he understands much more the potential of these hybrids than most of the humans around do. He realizes his own limitations, I suppose. And in that conversation with Morrow, he's called an old toy. They've moved on. They've made him obsolete. But he seems to have that respect of what they have created and what the potential is of the hybrids. It doesn't seem like he's jealous of them. It seems like he's going, wow, look what they've built here and look what the potential of it is. And yeah, when Joe tries to think she's going to graduate from this place at some point and then I get to take her home, he's been told no multiple times.
Neverland University.
Yeah, exactly.
Class of 21, 22 or something.
But he does get caught so many times in these conversations when he's trying to work out. So with Atom Eins, last episode, wasn't it, episode 4, before the flashback episode, Atom Eins was like, you were never taking her out of here. What do you think is happening? You know, we want you to prove that she is as human as she possibly can be, but she's not your sister anymore. She's equipment. She's a unit. She is a product of our organization. And here we have Kirsch saying something similar, but in his mind, it's the amazing potential of her. And then there's one other moment when we see Joe talking to his old team, and he's trying to work out a way to escape Neverland, finding out how close it is by boat. And his old compadre turns around to him and goes, what are you doing here? We're in a place where we're getting paid to do basic work. We don't have to go out in the big dangerous zones like we used to do. And he's going, but I want to get out of here. And what about all the scary monsters that are inside? And they go, well, at least we know that where they are while we're
Exactly.
here. Once we leave, we have no insight to where they are. And that's much scarier.
Yeah, exactly. And he also does it with Arthur as well.
Yes, he does.
You know, it ultimately becomes a little more cagey there because Arthur knows he's being watched, but he's asking, you know, are these hybrids, is my sister safe here? And he's like, oh, of course they are, as he then begins to say, look, I will show you, this is how we monitor them, as he's typing messages onto the screen, such as, here's the code for the ship dock, here's get out of here, and take Wendy with you. And he disables the trackers on Wendy, but also all of the synths as well. So equally, you know, Joe now he's been kind of prodding to see whether he can leave at Atom Eins, Kirsch, his own team, and now with Arthur. And in a sense, maybe he's gotten a validation of his feeling of this place, which is from Arthur, which is try and escape this place, take Wendy with you, and here are the codes for the escape, and we'll make sure she can't be tracked.
Yes.
And so, like, he does get it over the course of the few episodes that we've seen, but yeah, it initially seems like he's just trying to get it from to validate his sense of the place.
Absolutely.
Which is one that is uneasy.
And interestingly, in that conversation with Wendy, where she was talking about the Xenomorph and empathizing with it potentially, Joe tells her not to worry, won't be long. He's working out a way to get them away from Neverland. And she says to him, but what if I don't want to go? So all of these plans that he's making may be for naught.
Yeah.
And I will also say we have been dead naming her. She has changed her name. She is going by Marcy now. She specifically says that to Dame Sylvia. So once again, overriding that sense that she was built with, I suppose. So from the beginning, she was given this name of Wendy. She was given the name of the leader. Again, those tales of Peter Pan are being spread throughout this episode again. And she is calling out, she is no longer Wendy, she is Marcy now. So that's a very interesting change. So we should be calling her Marcy from now on.
Absolutely.
And another character that we've kind of been dead naming as well, Tootles. We keep calling him Tootles, and it's keeps coming up on screen as Tootles. He changed his name to Isaac a couple of episodes ago.
That is true.
Yeah, so we should be calling him Isaac, or, well, I guess
he is definitely dead now.
He is. So our next point really is the death of Isaac Nee Tootles.
Yes.
And the fly, the eponymously named fly. Oh, what a scene. I love
it really
this.
is.
It goes from this moment of absolute joy when Kirsch calls him on the way back saying, oh, I had to go out to the mainland, so I'm going to be delayed, but you need to feed the creatures inside the lab, and he's so excited, doesn't want to tell Curly about it at all because he's vying for the best possible scientific researcher position alongside Kirsch, and then runs off to do this job, and he is so delighted with himself. I love just the little performances that this actor does when he's playing Isaac. He does some really cool little moments when he's in the lab and he's feeding the creatures. He's just looks like he so respects himself for the choices he's made and for having this responsibility, and you can see it all over his face until he's in the room with the flies.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think first of all, he's in there because he's been instructed to go in there by Kirsch remotely to feed the specimens, check the data, and pick the next round of experiments from the list that we're going to follow. So I like the fact that, you have Kirsch putting him in this situation, whether that's a deliberate thing or just this is the daily procedure and Kirsch is off site. But Isaac here is also wanting to do it on his own. So, because in fairness, Kirsch does say, well, is Curly there? And it's like, no, she's not, even though she's right there. I can do this on my own. It's like he wants to prove himself to Kirsch that he can look after the fort whilst he's away, ultimately. So, and this sense of himself ultimately leads to his downfall because he messes up with it, whether it has been sabotaged deliberately previously by someone, or whether, because let's not forget, they are synths, so they do have an element of additional strength that humans don't. And so the door was stuck. That could have just happened. And because of his strength, he's able to sort of rip it off the hinges and open it. And that's when he starts to panic.
Yes.
But his panic is directed at, but I need to feed. So it comes back down to being this child ultimately in a human's sized body being given human jobs to do, because the priority is I need to feed the fly rather than to contain it and to make sure that it won't get out.
Yes.
And we need to get a crew down here to fix this door. Yes?
Well, exactly.
And so he decides to open up the door in order to go in.
Absolutely. And we just skipped over your new T-shirt, John, the line from Kirsch, the warning from him before Isaac goes into the lab. He says, now remember, follow the scientific method. It is a method, not a suggestion box. So,
exactly.
Which is definitely going on a T-shirt from you. But if he'd followed the scientific method, it would have been two of them in there. He would have taken Curly in with him, and there would have been two of them in case any problems happened.
Yeah.
There's someone in there to support him. Kirsch doesn't generally go in there on his own. Even when Wendy's in there, usually somebody's watching on of what's happening with her.
Yeah.
But here he is, trying to do it on his own, trying to be the big grown-up lab assistant, and he has been one of my favorite characters, I must say. He has been such a lovely, likable character, similar to Smee as well. Both of them very likable characters. But here, he just ends off doing the wrong thing. And wow, he pays brutally for it.
Well, and also, it's initiated by, Teoculus-controlled sheep. And I think this is the important thing here. All the way through this episode, and equally anytime we see the sheep is watching and waiting, patiently watching and waiting all the time. So, at the start, when Wendy's speaking to the young alien, you see in the background Teoculus watching on, observing in the same way that Kirsch is doing. And, there's that little hint or foreboding as it looks up towards the nest where the flies are in the corner of that containment box.
Yeah.
When Tootles comes in, you see the sheep is watching and waiting patiently, and as Tootles comes in, balancing the food, which looks to be rocks and metal, so these flies have a very different palate than most of the creatures.
Yeah.
It bangs up against the side of the room, the glass box, in order to startle Tootles and drop the food. Fall to the ground, and the door, closes shut slowly but surely, and he's in there then with the fly.
And there's another little moment from the Teoculus sheep, who, when Isaac looks away, that's when he instructs the fly to come out and go across the ceiling. So it's a little moment, but the eyeball effectively flicks toward the fly to tell it to come out, so that Isaac can't see him.
Yeah.
So Isaac doesn't even realize the fly's above him until he looks up and sees it, and then it drops on him and sprays him with acid into his eyes. Like, wow. Again, this is just terrifying. Seeing the white milky blood coming out of the
it really
the holes
is.
in his face. Yeah.
I must say, the only thing is the kind of floppy nose thing on the fly reminded me of the of Star Wars Episode 1 and Anakin's sort of slave handler. I can't remember the name of the character. So I have to say, like, I loved this and I love the fly. I wish the fly was smaller. I feel swarms of insects are, like, I think actually having it reduced in size by maybe 50, 75%, so it's just a little smaller, still the same design.
Right.
But more of them.
Okay.
I think that swarm element is a real panic thing, like at the moment with Asian hornets, or like, remember the movie, the Swarm, with the bees, the killer bees and all this kind of stuff. That swarming element of insects is a real terrifying thing.
Yeah.
And not to say that it's thousands, but maybe, still a good size insect so you can see what they're doing, but a little smaller, and that there would be a swarm that would come out of that nest. But equally, like, I like the fact that the fly goes onto the arm, and in a sense, Tootles is almost like looking at it going, oh, look, it's almost like falconry or something like that. And then it just, you see it building up, and the pouch in the front sort of getting bigger and bigger as it's filling its chamber with its acid, and then it just like squirts it out. Like, it's like kids squirting Coke from the straw.
Well, absolutely, yeah.
And all in the face. And I have to say, the response of Kit Young here after that event of being sprayed by acid is really good here. Yes, there's a lot of CGI at play here, but equally there's some eye twitching and mouth twitching that just really works here.
Really adds to it, doesn't it?
It really does. And I thought it was a great kind of visualization of it. And that's a combination of like Kit Young, it becomes very jerky, but also then with the CGI acid over him, it just worked. It looked really, really good the way, ultimately Isaac comes to an end. Although I do like Tootles. I just like that word.
I know.
But yeah, so Isaac is dead, here, and, the sheep still watches on.
Absolutely. But it's such a great moment, and he's been, again, a really good character so far throughout the season. So seeing him go this way is really sad. I guess the understanding from the beginning of the season, when they got them into the lab, was organics wouldn't be safe in this room, but the hybrids would be fine. And I think that's what he's thought the whole way through. So he probably didn't expect, even when the fly gets on his arm, he didn't expect that the fly was going to be able to spit acid into his face and kill him immediately. And then we see the two of them, the two flies that are in the room, going in and eating whatever's inside the synthetic body.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was there going, are they feeding or are they laying eggs or whatever? Right. Or are they doing both? You know, like I think it is eating, because it you know, you see it, his face effectively disappearing.
Yeah.
But again, I'd love to know the life cycle of this fly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think for the moment, what we definitely know is if Morrow gets his way and the lab is compromised and everything gets out of the lab, nobody is safe on this island of Neverland. Now there's something that can kill every single thing that's on this place. Organic or inorganic, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and potentially escape the island because it can fly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
How far? I don't know.
Yeah, but terrifying.
Yeah,
terrifying.
Absolutely.
So we accidentally have left the two big killings as our last 2 points. So let's get on to the last death of the episode. Because the facehugger's time.
Yeah, it's Arthur.
Yeah, but this is Morrow enacting his plan through his contact with Slightly. We see Slightly out in the forest trying to hide out and have this conversation. With Morrow trying to tell him, you know, I can't do it. Morrow's pushing him. And then Smee comes up in the background. And I just love this conversation between the two of them, because there's kind of a reminiscence almost for simpler times 1 week earlier when Morrow hadn't been in contact with Slightly, where Smee's kind of going, oh God, everybody's so boring and stressed. And here, why is nothing fun anymore?
Yeah.
You know,
adulthood is awful.
Yeah, and Slightly is effectively saying that. He's saying, no, we're adults now. We have to accept the fact that life is horrible, because that's basically what he's been told by Morrow, that once you become an adult, you get responsibilities, and life is awful from that point onwards, which is not a great experience for poor Slightly. But he sees Smee's response to that and tells him, don't worry, when I get my things in order, we'll be able to play whatever games you want. And getting his things in order is finding a victim for the facehugger. He goes for Joe first, which we mentioned earlier on. In a really childlike way, going into him and saying, I've got something to show you. And Joe doesn't take the bait on that. And then he goes, it's about Wendy, you know, trying to get him out of the room. Maybe we can go and find Wendy if you haven't found her. And Joe's accidentally almost getting himself out of it, going, Wendy will turn up. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I mean, but the thing is as well is, like, you know, Joe does, I think, appreciate that something is up or off kilter here, because the way Slightly goes about it has an element of creepiness to it. Like, he's smiling, but it's a nervousness to it. And there's almost this playful insistence, but you know there's an insistence behind it. And
Definitely.
So the excitable, playful sort of childlikeness of it is undermined by the insistence. And I think Joe does latch onto that. And I think it's probably just pleased then that his former colleague comes to get him to go on the patrol duty.
Yeah.
I do like the moment where they're walking down the corridor and he's like, what was that about? And he's like, I don't know.
Joe's like, I have no idea.
But like, they both sense there's something amiss there with Slightly, and you just have Slightly come out the door and look down the corridor.
Yeah. And there's a nice little touch here, because Slightly's worried that he's lost his only opportunity because he was so focused on Joe. But I think it's just a little touch, and I don't know whether it was intentional, but there is another human scientist that walks in the background, just an extra that walks past in the background, and it's almost like saying, don't worry, there's loads of other opportunities for Slightly. He'll find out later, because what he does next is effectively go down to the lab and hang around the lab, because that's the destination he needs to bring the human to. If he hangs around down there, then maybe another human will pass. Maybe he'll get another opportunity. Morrow calls him up to again twist the knife, telling him, do you want to say goodbye to your mom before I kill her? Since you're telling me you're not possibly going to be able to do this. So he gets really opportunistic.
And yeah, absolutely. And it forces slightly to pivot as Arthur comes down to the secure lab, and effectively bumps into slightly, loitering there to take that opportunity, because Arthur spotted that Tootles tracker is offline, and it is still as Tootles in the system.
That's right. Yeah.
But and so helps goes in. I do like the fact that Arthur's trying to get Isaac out of the cage, and you just see the shadows walking past as Slightly has opened the face hugger pen and then has secured the lab again. And then you have a really nice moment. I like the fact you didn't see the face hugger, and I liked seeing bits of broken sort of glass from the test tubes and the beakers sort of rolling across the floor. That was a real nice touch.
Very like Aliens.
Yeah, very creepy.
Yeah.
And I mean, Slightly is taken aback by what the facehugger does. You have Arthur pleading to Slightly, let me out. I have a family as well.
Yeah.
The only thing I thought was kind of weird was when it happens and the facehugger gets Arthur, like, that's fantastic. Slightly turns around, closes his eye, and you get tears.
Yes.
I thought it would have been milky tears, or no tears at all, because ultimately, yes, he's having that emotion, but does he have the physical? Is the physical element in the synth? Because you don't see that from Kirsch, or like ultimately it's a synth body with a human memory. Do you know what I mean?
It's a very advanced synth body though, and the promise of what Boy K is creating here is something that can stand in for
agreed
a body of a human completely.
No,
So
I was just
I remember,
a question.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember the milk is blood. So if blood had come out of his eyes, then they haven't connected the correct ducts up to the tears.
I need to be serviced. I must have I must have tear water added. It's like a car maintenance. Exactly.
Yeah, that's it. But there is another question I have actually from the conversations, and it also forms part of Wendy as well and her conversation with Dame Sylvia. And I think Nibs did it as well in the past. When they're talking about something that's happened to them, each of them say they don't name the person that's talking to them. So when Wendy's talking to Dame Sylvia, she says, he told me not to act so human. And she has to be prompted to say, well, who was it that told you that? And then she says Kirsch. In this case here, Slightly is saying through the door, he told me, he has my family. He told me he'll kill them, basically. And Arthur's kind of going, who's he talking about? What's the, who's behind this? So why aren't they naming the people? Is that some, I don't know, maybe I just don't spend much time around kids. Maybe kids do that all the time. They just assume everybody knows who they're talking about without giving them the name.
I think there is that kind of assumption around things. I mean, even we do it, where like, and I guess that would play out more in a work sense where you're like, not to assume that someone knows this acronym that you're or whatever,
maybe that's
but I think it's really creepy though, because it's like you kind of get lost around who they're talking about, and you have to you have to pick up the crumbs from the rest of the conversation.
Yeah, but I mean the other characters they're talking to certainly have no idea who they're talking about, so I just think that's quite an interesting touch.
But I ultimately then Slightly is successful here. I like the fact that there's, a close call with Slightly sort of potentially also being food for the flies, as well as he's trying to sort of bring, Arthur's body with the face hugger on it, into one of the vents, and he manages to get Arthur and himself into the vent just before, the fly seemingly was about to sort of snack on Slightly as well.
Like, genuinely, because Arthur's already in there, I was going, if the fly gets Slightly, then nobody will ever find Arthur's body. They'll cover it over saying, he already left the island because he was told he needed to get off there before he was killed, So, I thought that's what was going to happen, and then Slightly luckily pulls the vent cover over in front of him before the fly comes down. And again, in my head, I was like, well, the fly can get out through that. It's got acid that it can spit on there and get through, or it can just eat the vent cover. But then I went, oh no, hang on a second. This is really important. We now have a character impregnated by the Xenomorph facehugger who is in the vent system of an island lab, effectively, this huge complex, which we know is in a very hot place, which has ventilation everywhere in the building. And now that means the xenomorph inside Arthur, which will burst out and will get out there somewhere, is going to be in the air ducts. Yeah?
Agreed.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it is. Hugely terrifying. Like, Slightly's just made it even more efficient as a predatory alien species.
We are now back in the proper horror of aliens now, when you realise that they've got a ventilation system with possibly a xenomorph inside.
Yeah, I agreed. And I think the only other thing for me from this is, like, again, you have Kirsch seeing through the video link on the plane coming back to Neverland Research all the stuff that's playing out in the secure lab. So he knows that Isaac is dead. He knows the flies are out. He sees Slightly doing the bidding of Morrow because he knows about that conversation. He sees where Slightly has put the body. And when asked by Boy Cavalier if everything is okay, Kirsch simply replies in as affirmative.
Yes.
And so again, it's just really interesting. I mean, for me at the moment, I'm thinking, well, the whole thing with Kirsch is it's like David from Prometheus.
Yes.
That there is that, in a sense, he's experimenting not just in the secure lab, but with the whole of the Neverland island.
It's like
everyone on it.
It's like his experiments are, let's see what happens. That's
And
the experiment
that's very
that he's
much
allowed.
what David did as well.
Yeah, but I'm also starting to come around again. We'll go back and forth on this until the end of the series when we actually find out if we do. I'm also coming to your side of, is he working with Morrow in some way because of that conversation on the elevator where they were talking about murdering each other, and you're kind of going, do they?
Is that how Boy Cavalier knew about the payload effectively that was being carried by the Maginot? I mean, do you know what I mean? I'm sure all these different companies, the five, they've all got their own industrial espionage. If they've replaced, I think it's states, they've got their own spy network.
But I think that was the engineer that sent on the information to Boy K when he came into the galaxy or into the range to be able to send it to Earth. I think he sent on the information to Boy K. So don't think that's the case. I don't think Morrow and Boy K are necessarily connected. I think Kirsch and Morrow might be connected. Remember, Kirsch is old. He's way older than Boy Cavalier is.
Yeah.
Anyway, Boy Cavalier's probably about 24, 25, and I'd say we're talking Kirsch is probably 70 or 80 years.
Yeah.
Remember, Morrow's been gone for 65 years, and he had seen examples of this type of synth before he left. So you'd guess that Kirsch is old enough to maybe have been on planet when Morrow left.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. So much interesting stuff about this show to uncover as we get into the last two episodes.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just have one note about the episode that we haven't mentioned, if that's all right.
Fire away.
Yeah, it's just when Boy K is reading that passage from Peter Pan, which sounds absolutely terrifying, where he highlights the fact that the Lost Boys, who were all kids who were living there, that when they mature, Peter takes them out. And he's reading that as they grow up, I guess. Peter Pan takes out any of the Lost Boys who are growing. After he reads that passage, that's when we see the death of Isaac, who is the one that is maturing. He's the one that has a job. He's the one that's talking about, he wants to be a scientist in the future. He's more mature than the rest of them. I think they even said in that conversation with Joe, where Wendy was saying that she's the oldest, I think they pointed out that actually Tootles, Isaac, was the eldest of all of them before he went into the body. So it's just it's a very scary passage. I want to read Peter Pan again.
I mean, I only know the Disney cartoon, really. And
really
the scariest thing
idea,
is Captain Hook, but seemingly Peter is a bit of a murderous nymph.
And TikTok, the crocodile.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, he's pretty scary. But I don't think it's the same in the Disney version as in the book by the look of things. So maybe we need to check out the book, because the idea here is that once children grow up, Peter Pan takes them out. So it's interesting that it's connected with Isaac, the eldest, maturing and being taken out here as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. Any notes from yourself, John?
None from me.
Good stuff. Well, what did you think of this episode of Alien Earth, episode 6, The Fly?
I really, really enjoyed it. Again, I'm just loving this whole series. It's superb for me. I think for me this is 5 gloopy Goldblums out of 5. In honor, Jeff Goldblum, and The Fly.
Oh, of course,
Yes,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So I really kind of, I just loved all of this move here. Oh, actually, and I do have a note. In the opening where it flashes back to the previous episode, there is a moment where we see an alien autopsy with a human autopsy effectively on a table next to it.
Yeah,
and I don't remember seeing that in the episodes. So whether that is something to come, I don't know. But equally, it was a fairly sort of graphic scene, seeing the alien on the autopsy table.
But that was the one that Wendy had killed.
Yes.
Or Marcy had killed.
Agreed.
So I think there was that. Isn't there that moment where Kirsch says that when Joe's asking her, is she safe? And he's like, what are you talking about? She killed an adult male xenomorph, and this one's just a child. What's the problem?
Exactly.
So,
so I think, I just really enjoyed it. I liked the meeting of Prodigy and Yutani, Boy Cavalier and Lady Yutani here. I loved how that went down. The whole continuing questioning of everything by Marcy, especially in the context of what happened with Nibs, and what's happening in general. I mean, like, you have Morrow saying, and Yutani saying, move forward, recommending destabilizing the facility. I mean, everyone's doing that themselves here.
Kind of.
But equally, is this Kirsch destabilizing the facility for Morrow because of a connection?
Or slightly now potentially has destabilized it by bringing the facehugger attached to Arthur into the system.
It's why Kirsch is linked into the Morrow and Slightly conversation. So increasingly, I think this is a Rise of the Machines type element to it,
Absolutely.
not to cross the streams of sci-fi properties. But
we're already crossing them with a bit of Blade Runner in
well,
here.
That's true. But
bringing in Terminator is also kind of cool.
So it's becoming really, really interesting, and I think sort of underneath this, the whole allegory with Peter Pan, as you say, really kind of disturbing. So The Fly, fantastic, and again, the two, Kirsch and Teoculus, the ones watching, observing, waiting, sort of enacting, causing chaos. I just want to see how this plays out. So, I mean, I cannot wait for the next 2 episodes here of Alien Earth.
Absolutely. Speaking of watching, did you notice that the Xenomorph was getting very excited when he saw the facehugger take Arthur? So it was looking out through its glass as well at the time, kind of going, ooh, a victim for our group, effectively. So, really, really good. Everybody watching on just like us.
Indeed.
2 more exciting episodes to go.
So for me, 5 gloopy Goldblums out of 5.
Fantastic. Let's get some feedback from our wonderful fellow Lost Boys and girls. First up, over on Spotify, Fergus Moore filled in a bit of knowledge that we weren't aware of. Fergus says, apparently the Nostromo was only on an 11-month journey in the original Alien. This can be backed up by Ripley's reaction that she'd lost 57 years by the time it gets to Aliens, and her daughter had grown old and died. She expected to be back for her daughter's 11th birthday, as she grew up not to miss her whole life. The Nostromo doesn't launch till the year of the show or the year after, probably in response to the loss of the specimens. Very good, Fergus. I wasn't aware of that. I knew it was around this time that the incident happened in the original Alien. I thought it was within a couple of years of this. Like, I think it's 2 years after the time Alien Earth is set. But I thought they had maybe taken off before the show had started, and then the call went out to say, get some specimens in or stop here and collect the specimen, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really know about sort of the 11th month journey. I mean, the only thing I was aware with the Nostromo is that it was a mining ship rather than a deep space research. So they were responding to an emergency SOS beacon, ultimately, rather than going out to find aliens. Yeah. At least for the majority of the crew, except for Ash, of course, who knew the real reason for this. But I think equally, that was probably something that was downloaded to him after the fact, because they had been out on their mining mission, like we see, I guess, in Alien Romulus, those kind of mining operations on different planets and different systems to fuel this late capitalism of the Five.
Exactly, and we still don't really know how closely Noah Hawley is going to tie in Alien Earth into the Alien franchise as such.
That's
he does
true.
respect, obviously, the first two movies, but I think he's being allowed to not get hung up on something if it's going to affect how good the show is. I think that's kind of where he's being allowed to play around. So I don't think it's going to be as specific as we'll see young Sigourney Weaver getting aboard the Nostromo before it takes off, but there may be a mention of it.
I think the great thing about sort of Alien and Aliens is, in essence, they're self-contained stories. Yes, there is references to Weyland-Yutani and so on, but there was no real need to get into any kind of detail around Weyland-Yutani.
Yeah.
And that's just come in time. And I think here, but it wasn't sacrosanct. It wasn't making it sacrosanct in the same way that, say, Star Wars or, Lord of the Rings or whatever can be in some respects. So I like the fact that there is still this flexibility around what can be told here.
Yeah. I think even when we were watching the episode this week, when we saw Yutani come in, John was asking, "Where's Weyland?" Because we haven't seen him at all.
Where's Weyland? I want to see Weyland, but I mean,
but in all the universe, really, there's two stories about two different Weylands. One could be out in the Alien versus Predator world, could be over in the pyramids fighting with aliens and predators who've been in the pyramids, and that's one Weyland. And then the other Weyland that we've seen is the one that went out into space with David. So in the Prometheus movies, so. Is there another Weyland on Earth, possibly? Or maybe that's it, that they have left the planet and the name is left behind.
Yeah, let's we'll have to see.
But this time we have Yutani in the show, so maybe for season 2 we have Weyland, or a Weyland somewhere around. But great stuff. Thanks, Fergus.
Yeah, thanks, Fergus.
And thanks for contacting us through Spotify. If you want to leave your thoughts on any of our posts on Spotify, just listen to them and you'll be able to leave a comment on any of the posts over there on Spotify where all of our podcasts sit.
Yes, excellent stuff. Coffee and Vodka also shared his thoughts over on email. He said, "Greetings, fellow drama deleted defenders. In 2 simple conversations, Wendy converted me to a side, the alien specimens. With Hermit's blindness to humanity's ever-failing sense of humanity, he has joined Boy Conniver in the penalty box. Dame Sylvia's slippery sense of ethics, allowing her to justify Nibs' memory erasure, has placed her there as well. Kirsch's continued duplicity, along with everyone else's, has further crowded the box until once removing the dead and dying has created a playing field empty of anyone outside of the captive aliens and Wendy worth rooting for. And if they win, everyone loses. I have absolutely no idea why I love this series. 5 filthy Tarantino convocations, flyby spurtings, and tootaloos out of 5. Peace and take care. Coffee and Vodka. Excellent stuff. I love the tootaloo. Out of 5. Yes, R.I.P. Tootles, aka Isaac, or Isaac Nee Tootles. I really am with you there, Coffee and Vodka, around humanity, the blindness to humanity's ever-failing sense of humanity. It's really, really interesting.
But but you understand it. Joe is a human, and he's going. But we have to think about the humans because I'm one of them. I'm on the planet. We can't just let all humans die. And Wendy's kind of going, but I'm not human anymore.
No, agreed.
And interestingly, someone pointed out recently that Joe's also kind of a cyborg now. He's got a lung inside him that's an artificial lung provided to him by Boy K's company, so he's no longer fully human.
That's true. That's
a way to describe
I mean, it's more of a transplant with the need for some metal. Like if you need something pinning, I don't think it's quite in the same league as Morrow.
Yeah,
but I think the point here is okay. Agreed. Yes, you don't want humanity being erased, but I think the point here is that humanity is failing to sense its own parallels with these creatures.
Yeah.
And that being a part of humanity.
Yeah. I feel like Joe is really the kind of person that's kind of shouting, "Will somebody please think of the humans?" You know, that's kind of what his argument comes down to: is, "Will somebody please think of us?"
I mean, I think,
but everybody else is not really justified.
I think Joe's space is really focused on his sister, and who he thought had gone, and that in and of itself is clouding his bigger picture.
You know, you're probably right. I would say if there's a moment where he could sick the Xenomorphs on the rest of the humans just to save Wendy and get her off Neverland, that absolutely could be a choice he'd make. Yeah.
Indeed.
And really good call out there, Coffee Vodka. I just noticed your last line there is, "If they win, everyone loses." I think that was the tagline for Alien vs. Predator.
Yes.
Wasn't it?
Yeah.
So the two of them versus each other. Or maybe it was, I don't know, maybe it was Freddy versus Jason.
Possibly.
And I'm mixing up my movies. But great stuff. Thanks, Coffee and Vodka.
Yeah,
for your
thanks,
thoughts.
Coffee and Vodka.
Also an email, Robert Williams says, "Man, you guys have been busy. Between Marvel movies, Aliens, Sandman, probably 5 or 6 shows I'm forgetting to mention. I don't know when you guys sleep." The show has by far been the best streaming-only TV show from this year, in my opinion, and there have been some good ones. What do you guys think? From this episode specifically, I was a little puzzled, and I'm sure it was an ending thing of Sylvia getting fired and his wife having no conversation or anything after that. Do you think they just went their separate ways out of fear? Do you think they discussed how they were going to do life now? I think the more I see the eyeball sheep, the more creeped out I get. I'm not sure that any other animal would fit the creepy profile as much as that sheep does, and those acid flies are horrendous. I live in the southern Atlantic of America, and we have mosquitoes that are about that big, and now I can't walk outside. The monster creativity in the show has been fascinating to watch. Do you guys have a favourite? Do you think there are more that will debut here in the last couple of episodes? Sorry, I know that was a lot. You guys are killing it on the podcast. Great work. Robert from Charleston, South Carolina.
Excellent stuff, Robert. Thanks for sending in your thoughts there.
Absolutely.
For sure, my favourite is Teoculus, without a shadow of a doubt. I'm still kind of waiting to see what the pod creature does. We do see its kind of almost proboscis come out and sort of startle Tootles after he's just fed him. But just because it has so much vibe with some of the creatures in Half-Life, I'm hoping that it actually is like that.
That it will drag somebody inside, yes.
I mean, Xenomorph is the Xenomorph, really fantastic. I do like the fly. As I say, my only thing is I actually just wish it was a little smaller. I think the reason for the size is so you can see what it does to Tootles. And I think just reducing it and giving a swarm element, I think would have been really cool as well. Because that notion of swarming animals, and what they can do, or, you know, like piranhas, you know, where you've got a huge shoal of piranhas, swarm of bees or hornets, a swarm of whatever, you know, biting ants. It's like, okay, like, get me out of here.
Well, absolutely.
And so
it was terrifying enough on its own, I suppose, because we saw the leeches, where, you know, there were hundreds of those inside the water bottle that in episode 5. How many of those are out in New Siam now as well?
Well, that's it. The leeches have kind of been forgotten a bit, and I wonder if
they would have counted 2 and brought them.
Yeah,
with them.
Wonder if that's deliberate.
Yeah, I think we're going to see
ultimately, and again, the moisture elements that we know about and the humidity, just given the response it had to water. So, I mean, it could be everywhere. I mean, absolutely. Earth is what? Mainly water.
It is. And so are humans.
Yeah.
See, you know, every time you think you haven't been creeped out enough, you get even more creeped out, Robert. I think I understand completely how you're feeling about that. And now, like, my family live in Wilmington in Carolina as well. Now that you've told me that we have mosquitoes there that are about that big, I don't think I'm going to go and visit them for a while.
Hope not.
We're not visiting my family, John, for a while.
Well, some large fly swat is in order.
Well, absolutely. So, just one question that Robert asked there about how do you think this ranks in terms of streaming shows for the year? For me, it's I totally agree with you, Robert. It's one of the best shows that's been on this year. Every week, I'm just excited to sit down and watch it.
Absolutely agreed. For me, this is kind of it's like the Shogun of this year in that sense. Okay, very different properties, different stories, but really just invites you to come back and make it sort of scheduled TV viewing. It's really, really good. Love it. So totally with you there, Robert, on that. And I think, yes, to be honest, with Arthur and Dame Sylvia here, I think it's probably just efficiency of the storyline. I think it would have been nice to just see how that played out, the consequences of Dame Sylvia throwing her husband under the bus, to some extent. I think that would have been useful. I mean, even if, say, as Wendy comes in, you have that argument continuing and a few choice words just being heard, and then Arthur leaving, and then Dame Sylvia having to deal with Wendy around Nibs, and that's what kind of knocks her off, sort of maybe kills her, and the reason why it goes so badly.
Because it's just resigned to him picking up the cube of photographs of the two of them enjoying maybe a honeymoon or a holiday before they got here, and then he kind of gives a bit of a shrug, as in, she's always like this, or well, kind of, but it's almost like he just knows there's no talking to her when she's made those decisions. But she'll never see him again now.
Absolutely not. No, Arthur is well and truly done and dusted. I would say here, but great stuff.
Absolutely. Thanks, Robert. And just, you mentioned about the amount of shows that we're covering. We are covering a little less than we could be, but we only have one day a week to record, and we have Sandman and Alien Earth at the moment. So we are slowly drip feeding Sandman out. And then we're going to have Gen V coming up, which is our biggest show on the podcast. All the boys' coverage is our biggest shows. That's starting in about a week's time with 3 episodes. I don't know how we're doing that. And then we have Marvel Zombies, who, even though it was cut up into 4 episodes, they're releasing all 4 episodes at the end of September as well. So there's a lot of great stuff. They are really, really worth the watch, but we will have to measure when we release stuff because we have jobs and we do actually sleep.
Yes, we do.
I promise. We do. But thanks, Robert, and thanks for your thoughts. I'm glad you're enjoying the podcast.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Over on Facebook, Richard Blaze says, "Loved this. Back to being on top form after last week's misfire. Boy K being a massive tool when meeting Yutani and on the dropship. The brilliant exchange between Kirsch and Morrow, old toy. The flies doing what flies do best and having a tasty meal on Tootles. Arthur, wow, that took a turn I never guessed until I saw it happen, and slightly just standing there coldly watching what goes on. Evil. Oh, and back in the vents we go. The alien looked better this week, but still seems off. But still, the star of the show is Sheep Eye. That thing is just filling the nightmares with visions you don't need. Pure class." Excellent stuff, Richard. Glad you loved this episode after not finding last week's necessarily to your liking. And I think totally agree with you along here. You know, I think Arthur was in the wrong place at the wrong time, both in relation to his wife and also slightly standing there coldly watching. I think it is, but I think when he turns around, you realize he's actually just holding it in. As I say, I was more concerned that you had tears, like him just closing his eyes and realizing what he's done is really bad. But it's coming from a place that he's effectively been groomed into by Morrow.
Exactly.
So
I give no blame to Slightly here. This is all Morrow's doing. It's a horrible situation that Slightly's been put in.
Well, the situation is evil and it's not nice.
I genuinely do think that Morrow would kill his mom if he didn't do what he was doing. He's got brothers as well, you know, so he would probably kill a member of his family and then go on and kill his brothers if he hasn't already.
Yeah.
How does Slightly know? You know?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Richard. I'm really sorry your feedback on last week's episode didn't choose to leave it out. Your feedback on last week's episode came in after we'd recorded, and I did read it on the Facebook group. Richard was not a fan of last week's episode, the flashback episode at all. Didn't like it. I know that has been a feeling by some other people. Please do send in your feedback if you don't like the episodes. More than happy to read them out. I'm sorry that we didn't get to Richard's from last week, but I'm glad you stuck with the show and came back for this episode this week.
Yeah, and I'm loving it. Yeah, absolutely. Good stuff. Thanks, Richard.
Thanks, Richard. Paul Tenchi Lee says, I've written this before and I'm sure I'll have the same reaction again. This episode took a left turn, or possibly several ones, but looking at it, them in retrospect, none of the turns were surprising once you work through the implications of the story so far. And once again, using little kids as test subjects for immorality has ramifications without turning them into first responders / recon teams at a crash site. What is Kirsch up to? Are we going to find out that he's a Wayland implant, a prodigy? Does Morrow recognize him as an older model because he worked with those before leaving on the Maginot? It occurs to me that the other fairy tale trope in this show is Pinocchio. Unclear if that was on the minds of the screenwriters for Alien and Aliens, but it seems clearly a reference point to Prometheus and Covenant. I think it's because we're used to seeing these stories from the human point of view and don't usually consider how the synths think / feel until the plot forces that on the audience. I have now seen more of those mouldy looking spots in the hallways, but we've not seen people cleaning those spots for a couple of episodes. I kind of want to know what that's about.
Me too, Paul.
Finally, I haven't seen or heard any reactors or reviewers talk about a less than 1 second shot in the intro previously on section on episode 3, where it looks like Slightly and possibly Smee or Morrow are standing next to a makeshift floating platform at the edge of a river on the ocean, and there's something the size and shape of a person on the platform. Ooh, interesting one. Might have to go back and see that on episode 3. But we definitely noticed in this episode a couple of the elements that were in what we were thinking were the previously on hadn't actually occurred in any of the episodes that we've seen before.
Like literally an alien autopsy.
Yeah.
That's an absolute possibility that has happened.
Yeah.
For sure.
So I think Noah Hawley is just having a lot of fun. You assume it's the previously on when you're watching through, so he drops in a few things that might make you might set up the episode differently. Yeah. I like that. Very impressive. Good catch as well there, Paul. And you're asking some of the similar questions that we have. What is Kirsch up to? Is he to do with Wayland? Is he connected to Morrow in some way? I think right now, those are all the questions we should be asking. What the hell is going on with them? And the idea that Pinocchio is kind of baked into this show, that's kind of part of Blade Runner, isn't it? The concept of are the androids real? Can they be real? And here we have the same thing with the hybrids here. Are they real humans? Are they real kids or not? I guess that's what will be answered in the future.
Absolutely. Great stuff, Paul. Thanks so much, as always, for the feedback.
Absolutely.
I'm totally with you around wanting to understand what the mouldy spots are in the hallways. Given how many billions old Boy Cavalier must have, and Prodigy Corporation or Prodigy LLC, I think, I don't think a high-tech lab would have mouldy hallways, no matter how humid the climate is outside. It would be so temperature controlled in there. It would be unbelievable.
So there's something that was mentioned by the production designer on the official podcast this week, where which I did get to listen to this time before we recorded, where he's saying this is some of the impacts of climate change when we're talking about 100 years
That's true.
later than we are now, roughly 100 years than we are now. He's effectively built that into that, so showing that you have to have somebody spraying down the walls to get rid of mold at all times if you want to locate your supervillain hideout on an island in the middle of the ocean in a really, really humid climate. You have to do it. So that's the kind of, it's a little thing that's built in there.
A thought that has just occurred to me is, with these alien species now out on Earth, are they going to do a kind of a War of the Worlds thing where actually humanity's savior is all the microbes that these creatures haven't ever come into contact? So I don't know whether the alien will suddenly get smallpox or whether, the flies will get syphilis. It's just that kind of notion of all these, like the fungal spores from possibly the black mold,
like it,
and the yeast, the whatever it is, maybe the alien gets an itchy crotch. Or something.
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Well, the whole thing about Alien is that it's a rape allegory, right? So it's absolutely could get some kind of STD.
Are we going to see something where Earth hits back? Because actually, in the end, they are invasive, absolutely, but can they deal with the stresses that actually are present on the Earth and which the humans have, along with other species, co-evolved with and got their strategies to fight against?
Absolutely. It's entirely possible, John. That'll be it. It's effectively, oh no, the alien's sneezing. And that's it. But it's the end. Yeah.
It gets the common cold.
It could be the way that's sorted out. That's how season 2 ends. We just hear a sneeze and someone gets covered in acid. Oh no, it's drool, isn't it? Sorry.
The alien. All of a sudden, Marcy doesn't understand the alien because it's got a really bunged up nose and a real bad head cold.
Or maybe that's why she's having a problem with the pronunciation at the moment. The alien has come out with a cold. That's what it is.
Anyway, good stuff, Paul. Thanks so much.
Absolutely.
And finally, Corey Garin says, I have a question about last week's episode. Xenomorphs don't have eyes, right? So would the eye thingy be a threat to the Xenomorph? I think that's, I think that was kind of the reason why Teoculus in the end didn't really, or wasn't successful in that attack. I think it attacked where it thought the eye might be,
Yeah, I think what we're seeing is how Teoculus is interacting with things that have eyes, but we don't know how it lands on its own planet. Remember when we saw it first, it did have 8 individual type of eyeballs around it. It wasn't in the shape of an eyeball. It takes that shape when it attaches itself to a human or to a sheep or a cat, as we've seen. But it's not necessarily that it was going to become the eyeball of the Xenomorph. Yeah. But what we do know is that it can burrow inside an organic body. Yeah. So I think it was trying to burrow inside the Xenomorph in a way at a point where it thought the softness would be, so somewhere around the head.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting as well, because I never kind of really ever had the notion that the Xenomorph didn't have eyes. I just assumed that they were on the side of the head, like, say, a fish.
Have you seen the meme that's gone around where you have the googly eyes of Cookie Monster attached to the Xenomorph? It's very funny.
Yeah, but I mean, do you know?
No, I think there's
just that notion.
Yeah, they sense it. That's the thing. They're hunters. But I don't think they have eyeballs as such, but they sense everything that's around them. So do you remember there are scenes within the Alien movies where some of the humans have been able to get around them by disguising themselves. Like I think in Romulus they move slowly so that they don't disturb the aliens.
That's the face huggers. Yeah,
that's
temperature. Yeah. I mean, I always remember the temperature, humidity, and all that kind of stuff, and like sweat or
disguising themselves. So I don't think they can see the same way that we do, but I just think something that can burrow inside a body, even if it's small, it is a little threat to the Xenomorph.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would annoy the hell out of it anyway. That's why they were battling with each other.
Anyway, good stuff, Corey.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the questions.
And finally, Dr. Bob Phillips has his thoughts. He says, the horror rises. I did not think we'd have a synth-eating alien or that Butler would sack the science crew. Smee, played by Jonathan Ajayi, is playing a blinder with his portrayal of a joyful, sociable 9-year-old. And Sheep the Destroyer looks like Vengeance will have a woolly face. Excellent, Dr. Bob.
Yeah, completely agree with you about Jonathan Ajayi, who plays Smee. Just such a sort of great portrayal, as I say, of a young kid. Yes, the woolly face is the bringer of death.
Of doom for all.
Exactly. And yeah, indeed, synth-eating alien. Oh, I do like a bit of inorganic.
Oh, I know.
It's a bit weird. Like, I mean, it's interesting that they're eating, like, effectively metal, rock, plastic, whatever it is, composite materials.
There's a really short video through the official Alien Earth channel on Facebook where the showrunner, Noah Hawley, describes that what they're doing is they're spitting the acid so they can melt down the minerals into something edible and then sucking it back up with their proboscis, as you described, John. So it's even more disgusting the more I think about it. It's awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
But great stuff. Thanks for the feedback, Dr. Bob.
Absolutely, and thanks so much to everybody for your feedback. Great to hear it all. Keep it coming. Keep emailing us to feedback@tvpodcastindustries.com or pop on over to our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/TV Podcast Industries with your thoughts on the episodes that they come out. We've only got 2 more left.
Yes.
Episode 7 coming next week, Emergence.
Oh no. I'm guessing that's Arthur. But nonetheless, it could be literally anything.
It could be. But
I
yes.
say, is there some emergence going to happen from Tootles?
Maybe, or it's just misspelt and it's emergency. No, it's definitely called Emergence. Looking forward to that, and looking forward to chatting all about it next week.
Yes, absolutely. Great stuff, and thank you for joining us, fellow Lost Boys. Great to discuss this episode of Alien Earth with you. Mm-hmm. Until the emergence next week, keep watching, keep listening, and of course, keep screaming.
Bye.
Bye.